don't even know that the encyclical exists in Copacabana because the media in Peru is owned 80% by one family that is pro-business. So they don't even cover the encyclical. All they do is editorialize against it. So if you know anything about it, you think it's bad, okay? And so what the Vatican did that was really extraordinary is that they made summary translations in a variety of languages of the encyclical. And so I took the one in Spanish and made copies of it. And my friend Enrique just showed up. Enrique, he just, this guy was indispensable. We would literally hand it out to people that weren't familiar, like pro or con, hand out a summary in their language of the encyclical so they could know what it was about. And some of them were threatened by it, and others were emboldened by it. So we met with, the last person we met with in Cocachacra was a farmer by the name of Jesus Cornelius. And I've interviewed a lot of people. I've interviewed presidential candidates, I've interviewed rock stars. As a journalist, I don't know why anybody would want to do anything else, right? And so I felt the charisma of charismatic people, but I don't know that I've ever felt the charisma of a farm worker just walking into the room and sitting down to talk to me. This is a guy who puts his life on the line every day to go up against a multinational corporation who he says, you are not going to destroy our way of life. And he's about ready to give up because 7 of his friends have been murdered by the military because when they protest, the government uses real bullets. And I gave him a copy of this summary of the encyclical, and he looked up almost with tears in his eyes, and he said, we have hope. We are not giving up. And it was an extraordinary moment. And so you see this dichotomy of people in the North who are minding his everything, and they want the Pope to mind his own business. Just be our Pope from Latin America. And then you go into the South, where they're trying to do something different, and the Pope represents something entirely different to them. He represents hope.
There's a lot of energy around international attention to poverty alleviation, to education, and to public health issues in the developing world. These are issues that have for many generations been important in the Catholic Church's global mission. These are issues that many major evangelical organizations are deeply involved with. And in many of these areas, the organizations and non-government groups that are engaged in these issues have been seeing the relationship between climate change and their issues of primary concern for the better part of 2 decades now. So my own research has suggested that many of the religious organizations engaged with climate change have come to the issue by way of their pre-existing concern about those other kinds of issues.
I've been following the Vatican for many years and this Pope, and I'd like to provide some political context on how this document was written. It takes a long time for this church to kind of move in certain directions. Francis is moving at lightning speed on the environment, and on other issues more incrementally. So this document was written by a brain trust. He has effectively sidelined the CDF, and he's taken 2 pontifical institutes and councils, as they're called. These are not congregations. The way the Vatican operates is you have 9 congregations, which are like cabinet-level positions. Bishops, doctrine of the faith, immigration, these various categories. Well, he has taken 2 pontifical councils, which are not quite at the level of congregations. One is on science, the other on immigration, and he's turned them into think tanks. One of the truly great quotes of this entire year, anywhere, in any media that I've seen, came in July when, a month or so after the release of the encyclical, the Vatican hosted a gathering of 60 mayors and other officials from across the world. This did not get much media attention. It was covered, but it didn't get the attention I thought it deserved. Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, said, and he is not a practicing religious person, he said, I never thought I'd say this, but the Vatican has become a center of progressive thought.
As you say, yes. I'm a professor, associate professor of Christian ethics. My focus in my research is on the ways Christians in the US make arguments, think about arguments, and relate their arguments to Christian communities, Christian traditions. To me, to my reading, the central idea is integral ecology. I think the document argues that this thing it calls integral ecology is, and this is a direct quote, at the heart of what it means to be human, and also that integral ecology is the way we're going to win what you call this struggle to survive on Earth. And could spend hours trying to figure out what integral ecology means. I think the best way I've got to understand it is integral ecology means that Pope Francis is trying to synthesize anything that has previously been seen as antithetical. And maybe the central one in the document is social justice and the environment. And the document argues over and over again, we have to integrate this, right? We have to hear the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth is something the document says. I also think he's working to integrate science and religion. He is clear in saying scientists are vital for this project of thinking about climate change, but cannot do their work alone. Quote from Merton, if you want to study the social and political history of modern nations, study hell. That's this other model of the interaction between Christian morality and politics. And what a discussion I would love to have someday, and maybe it will take some time, is how much is Pope Francis trying to integrate these two alternatives? Right? When he stands up in front of Congress and says, your job is to look out for the common good, that sounds like Martin Luther King. When he stands up in front of Congress and says, we absolutely have to do something about the arms trade, and everybody sort of politely looks at their shoes, that sounds a little more like Dorothy Day. And I would be interested to know if Pope Francis thinks those two things can be integrated. I would also be interested to know if we, in our national discourse and our mainstream media, to use that phrase, are equipped to even have the conversation nationally about that kind of choice.